Good morning, all. Thank you, NABARD and IIMAI for organizing a wonderful Earth Summit in the happening city, Hyderabad. And thank you, the initial comments for a wonderful 2 days of learning, understanding, knowing each other, network, and setting up the tone for the what next. I grew up in serene village of Telangana. In my childhood days, I used to observe the farming community where we lived together. And when a farmer want to take a loan, they will go to a nearest RRB rather, regional rural bank, stand in a queue, take an application, go to some educated person to fill it up, then go to a nearby city to get photograph. Then you have to take NOC from multiple banks appearing in the place. Then the agriculture officer of the bank will visit the farm or the livestock of the farmer. And after that, there is a approval process in 2-step, 3-step. Then once the approval comes in, the documentation, the signatures, and the disbursement will take at least 20 to 30 days, with 5 to 10 days of working days being spent on this work. You cut short, in today's world, a loan origination field officer will go to a farmer place with his mobile, take the iris or the face of the farmer, and also the photograph of the Patadar passbook of the farmer. Now the data systems work. The identification of an individual or an applicant start with eKYC mechanism, the Aadhaar authentication, the ration card authentication, or the voter ID authentication. We have data systems backing up. The data will fetch the credentials and validate over the algorithm, then move to your land records, and also the Google coordinates of the land. Automatically your system will get into agri systems where what kind of crop is grown, what are the risks of weather, and of course the drought impact, and what kind of pest being addressed here, what is the cost of inputs being used, what is the cost of labor is available on algorithm, and of course the credit bureau is verified, and the behavior and the family size of the applicant is being assessed in terms of their income and expenditure, and what is the crop grown. We have seen what is the average yield, what is the average price of the produce, and what is the actual expected income from that land is being arrived, and the loan is disbursed. Probably the loan is disbursed much faster than what I narrated now. So that's the reality today, thanks to the various data systems from the government and the private partnership being done. So in today's discussion, we have an eminent panel who are making my job much easier. And I will start with Chandrasekhar sir, a very reputed Indian Administrative Service officer who contributed while we are at a witnessing side. But sir has spearheaded so many initiatives from the government. Today we talk about Jan Dhan Aadhaar Mobile is a reality and in every corner of the country. But SAR was at the helm of affairs when 2G spectrum or 3G spectrum started, and how the real fruits of the technology is available on the ground now. So over to you, Chandrasekhar sir. Enlighten us through the history, what happened in the government initiatives, and how the government initiatives are able to get into that inclusive finance and inclusive commerce sector, and what we are seeing the fruits on the ground today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Raghu, and good morning to everyone and to my fellow panelists. I thought I would set out a little bit of a broader context for the discussion we are about to have. We all know that technologies like artificial intelligence, which depend heavily on data, are extraordinarily powerful. And their impact is visible across sectors. But here's the catch. Identifying use cases with a clear value proposition and a return on investment is tough, especially in agriculture. That's why I think we have to start with the purpose. And technology should not become like a hammer to which every problem looks like a nail. In India, there are two priorities which stand out. The first is to ensure that everyone has equitable access to the opportunities that are getting created. The second is to generate employment, and that's very important in the Indian context, not replace employment. The at a national level, the big challenge is how do we promote sustainable agriculture? At the same time, policy also has to create some space for entrepreneurs like the gentleman you are about to hear to solve specific problems. That's how grassroots innovation takes off. But what does sustainable agriculture really need? Two things. Number one, smarter use of inputs, fertilizers, pesticides, water, and so on. There are plenty of studies which show that in India we are grossly overusing all of them. The second is better returns for farmers. Today they often get less than 30% of the value of their produce. That has to change. To achieve all of this, we need efficient and inclusive commerce, both in inputs and for farm-to-fork market linkages. On top of that, we need hyper-personalized advisory services to farmers. So the question is, can AI deliver such advisories at the level of individual land holdings? Using crop data, soil data, irrigation data, weather data, and so on. Do we have the unified, standardized data infrastructure and the academic linkages to support this kind of an environment? Another thing is, how do we integrate across supply chains? It's important to have an integration across supply chains. Data standards have already been formulated, but adoption and enforcement are missing. Even if these kind of advisory services are available, farmers often can't access them directly. That's why conduits matter. FPOs, natural language, speech-to-speech processing in Indian languages, and assisted access centers like the community service centers. Take the CSCs as an example. Today there are 500,000 CSCs employing over 2 million people. That's inclusion in action. So we also need to think more in terms of services, not in terms of capex. Why buy a tractor on EMIs when you can get it on a pay-per-use? Why not drone services instead of self-purchase and operation? Imagine 50 lakh drones operating in India at only a 50% penetration compared to 80% penetration in China. That alone would create employment for 1 crore people in the country. The strength in services, India is very strong in services, all of you know that. We may not have been great at producing technology or producing products, but services, we are the kings globally. So that strength can be leveraged to create powerful micro enterprises offering drone services, supply chains, market linkages, and AI advisory services. But again, commerce alone is not going to make all this happen. Policy alignment is critical. While we talk about optimization of input, if policy subsidizes the inputs heavily, then it is an encouragement to overuse them. So these current subsidies discourage optimization. But if we were able to give direct subsidies to the farmers, then they themselves will be the first ones to optimize it because that is how their profitability increases. And those direct subsidies are possible using things like DBT and JAM, which Raghu just referred to, direct benefit transfer, and Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, and mobile, which enable the subsidies to go directly to the farmer. Then you have aligned the farmer's interest with the interests of the ecosystem. But all of this requires big data. You can't get to them directly. Land records, satellite, crop level data, farm level information, and so on. There's one more angle to this, one more complication, if I may say so. The land holding data is complicated. Yes, I agree, Patadar passbooks are there, but we all know that there is, the land ownership, the tenancy, the cultivator, the laborer. These relationships are complex, not very easy to penetrate. And quite often, untangling this is not so easy. So do we try to untangle them, or do we try to bypass these and somehow get the credit and the subsidies to reach directly where they should? In some way, linking it, of course, to the land holding. So maybe entrepreneurs can find very creative solutions here to these kind of intractable problems. Another thing which actually needs work is the whole market yard policies. Because state-level restrictions on movement of crop and produce and taxes at the state level like octroi, they block integration at a national level. These hurt farmers. So instant credit based on output of the farmers could actually save them from the clutches of moneylenders who generally tend to skim off the profits because they can't wait. Again, entrepreneurs can design financial products which actually bridge this gap. To make all of these things real, we need innovation, investment, and integration. So digital public infrastructure, like ONDC, we have a representative here, and I'm sure he will speak a lot about it, and OCE, an Open Credit Enabled Network, and ENAM, the Electronic Agriculture Market. All of these can connect providers nationwide. But agriculture itself may need multiple DPIs for data, for credit, for services, and maybe for even for regional needs. So interoperability amongst all these is critical. The blueprints for data exchanges are ready. It's not something that is imaginary. But what we need now is adoption and enforcement. So look at the fintech sector. RBI's regulatory role unified a very fragmented sector. But agriculture has no such regulator. Government therefore has to step in, but carefully. Too little oversight will lead to chaos, and too much oversight and involvement will stifle innovation of the kind that we are going to hear about. So let me end by saying their balance is everything. And let me end with 3 clear suggestions. Number 1, establish data exchanges, DPIs, which enable controlled flow of data from public agencies to service providers. The second, ensure that the agriculture DPI, which is already halfway through, integrates the entire sector, inputs, credits, market linkages, advisory, delivered directly to farmers, and both also integrating public and private service providers and paid and free services. So these are just some thoughts, and I hope some of these thoughts will help to trigger the discussion and unfold more ideas as we go along. So thank you. Let me stop here.
Thank you, Chandrasekhar. So that's experts talk. They're coming from the government, what to do, how much to do, how not to do, how much not to do, and also the various open networks available, data systems available, how to utilize these data systems to deliver for the future. I think there is a wonderful platform set in the country by the leaders like you, and also the entrepreneurs and the private sector being in hand growth. I think now the time to take off and deliver it much faster, much robust, and of course much benefit to the end users. Now we will move to a very interesting platform. Mr. Rohit is representing ONDC here, the Open Network Digital Commerce, and we all heard about it. We have read a lot about it. We will understand from the man representing the company and what are the various initiatives, what are the things in future ONDC can deliver, especially some challenges thrown by Chandrasekhar sir. Rohit, if you can explain a little detail on ONDC work and how the inclusive commerce can take off from the platform, please.
Thank you, both of you, and very interesting insights. I'll catch on something, sir, that you mentioned about equitable opportunity to do commerce, right? If you look at the physical world, you will see that in an offline store concept, for example, you'll see a very different player being a dominant player in Delhi. You'll see a very different player in Andhra. You'll see a very different player in Chennai. The landscape across the country, as you move from state to state, sometimes even city to city or district to district, changes. When you look at the digital ecosystem, however, it's not the same. You will hear about typically 2 or 3 companies in every sector across the country. Why do you think that happens? The primary thing behind it, and kudos to all of these companies that have made such investments, have been able to build such franchise, but at the heart of it is a lot of data, information, and insights. Now, when this data, information, and insight is inside what I call a walled garden or a walled fortress, and it's not accessible to everybody else, it also creates a significant barrier to entry for people to participate. Now, as ONDC, what we're trying to do, and you talked about inclusive commerce, right? And let me touch upon that a little bit, and I'll come to this example. When we talk about inclusive commerce, we can break that inclusiveness in 2 parts. The first is what I was alluding to, which is who can build commerce. And the second part we'll talk about is who can participate in that commerce. When you have such walled fortresses where data is concentrated and in silos, it becomes very difficult for somebody else to build another walled fortress next to it. So at ONDC, one of the things that we went in as a hypothesis and which has started playing out, and we're very glad about that, is we said, can we make one person's effort solve everybody else's problem? So if one person onboards a merchant or a seller, can this seller be available to every consumer who's wanting to buy? And if there's a consumer coming on somebody's platform to buy something, can he see all the sellers without the same platform having to do the same thing or multiple platforms having to do that repeatedly? So we created a concept of a buyer app and a seller app. And through the ONDC, which is a protocol, the buyer apps and seller apps were able to talk to each other. Any seller app, and today we have multiple seller apps onboarding merchants and sellers and bringing them to the ecosystem. Any merchant onboarded through any seller app is available to all the buyers across platforms. Right? So there's the data exchange that sir was talking about. In some sense, that's getting created. Now, if a seller is performing well on a platform, the other platforms also know. So there's interportability of your performance across the network. If a seller is not performing well, not delivering orders on time, the network knows, right? So there's added incentive to be a good player. As we go forward and the way ONDC is developing, somewhere we'll also be able to tell you from a consumer perspective that if a consumer is not behaving well on a platform, then all the platforms know that this customer is trying to create an abusive transaction in the system. Now, if you're familiar with payments or banking infrastructure, for example, all people who are involved in money movement individually try to prevent frauds in the system or abuse in the system. But there's an FIU where everybody shares the data. Because FIU can then collectively see and ensure a player is not doing something in a system, getting caught, but still able to do something in another system. Right? So this aggregation of data or accessibility of data for use for every player is magical. And that's what ONDC has been trying to do at a platform level to ensure that multiple people can come in and participate. We have an excellent example. Some of you would have heard him yesterday. Adbal started off in Meghalaya. 2 years back, living his corporate life, he had come in and said, I want to work at the grassroots levels, ensure that people who are producing stuff in Meghalaya, I'm able to highlight them and bring them to commerce. Today, he is one excellent partner for ONDC, has developed substantially on the platform because he's got access, he's got understanding of what can sell where, able to bring the products from Meghalaya into the overall ecosystem. And at this point of time, he's within 2 years, because he's got access to this open network, he's at a point where he's discussing how to bring this up with multiple government agencies in Meghalaya and at the national level. So that's the kind of power that can get unlocked when we all collaborate and work together and the data is accessible for common good. The second part of the problem, when we talked about inclusive, is who can participate. I'll go back to the analogy of walled fortresses. Whenever there's a walled fortress and not a community garden, there will always be a guard standing outside, controlling who gets in and who does not. Today, if a D2C player who's trying to create something from scratch, maybe working with farmers, working with FPOs, it's not a very easy route to get into quick commerce. You have to create enough inventory to stock in every dark warehouse. You have to give hefty margins. Sometimes you even have to give deposits, right? What we are doing again through Open Network is we are allowing access without constraint. So you are a seller, you want to come on board, you want to get your products exposed, you are most welcome. We'll reach out to you and get you in, right? But like all community space, we all know it's easier to keep our house clean, somewhat difficult to keep the roads clean, right? We are invested in our house, we keep sweeping our house, but we don't go and sweep the road. We leave it to the government to do that. So keeping a community garden alive, nice, thriving is sometimes challenging. So that is where ONDC also steps in and ensures that the behavior of each of the participants in the network is appropriate and we facilitate to enable right behavior. Sometimes bad behavior is not because of intent, bad behavior is because of capability. That is where ONDC will step in, provide that capability and try to bridge that gap. There's a very interesting example. There's an FPO based out of a very remote village in Jharkhand. They were doing about 4 lakhs to 5 lakhs of sales a year. They came onto the ONDC platform. We worked with them. We helped them with the packaging. We told them how to sell the products. I'm very proud. Today they are doing 2 to 3 lakhs per month instead of per year. They're doing 2 to 3 lakhs per month on ONDC platform itself. But the level of change is not limited. Now that they've learned how to do business, they're actually doing more than 1 crore on digital platforms, some of them outside ONDC, which we are very glad about. Right? So it's basically getting access to data information markets, which enables many of us who are working with farmers, with agriculturists, with FPOs to bring that up. We have some great examples on the panel today of people who made that happen. And we'll collaborate and we'll help them move forward even faster.
Oh, thank you, Rohit. That's a wonderful. See, how do you get the access? See, as we say in India, there are 2 places a common man can walk in fearless. Is one is a railway station, second is a post office. Can we have a day where a common man can use the ONDC app as fearless as he's stepping into a railway station or a post office? I think probably we are not far off. In the FPO story, what you are narrated right now cannot be a one-off story. If this app can really work on the ground and the entrepreneurs and youngsters sitting here can use that kind of a platforms to get into the grassroots of our society, probably I think that can do much more wonders and many more such stories can come on. Now I'll get into the practical person who is handling the agri-value chain and also the working with farmers and creating value to the produce of the farmers. Mr. Vijay Pratap Singh Aditya is here from Ekgaon Technologies. They are doing wonderful work. I think the path-breaking work, I would say, in our country. All of us need to understand what they are doing, how they are doing, and especially how the technology is empowering their vision and also working with the farmers. Vijay.
Thank you, Hari. I would suggest another place where any farmers or anybody can walk in. And this is a very new institution called the Business Correspondents. And it is more ubiquitous than the post office and the banks. And it is made possible by bringing in a huge network, which is now the second largest network after the Kirana network. And ironically, I am one of the founders of the Business Correspondent Federation, and we have recently merged with IMAI as an organization, and IMAI henceforth will be representing business correspondent. And the reason why I'm mentioning that, it is one of the largest experiment ever done in the history of making financial inclusion possible using an approach called Digital. So there's a digital approach, which is pure digital. You have an app or any other data ecosystems in your hand. Then there's a physical access point where it is, because most of us, so there are two elements of any access in financial inclusion. One is financial literacy and second is digital literacy. And both we have a challenge in a country like ours. It's a massive country. We need access, but then these are two tools which do not allow us access. And we can't solve everything, but the physical and digital network allowed through BC access points allows that to happen. And this is probably one of the biggest understanding we as practitioners on the ground need to have from a point of view that what works on the ground or what works in an ecosystem which is not truly enabled by multiple services which are available from that ecosystem. And that is where it becomes imperative on practitioners like us, innovators and ecosystem players, including data and technology-enabled services players, to understand that, to make that decision-making support because information is essentially for decision-making, be it decision-making for what crop to grow, what SOPs, standard operation protocols to follow on a farming activity or a farming decision, that or what accessibility to get information or sales like on ONDC platform and other platforms. So that physical and digital needs to meet some place. What is that place? What is the nature of that place? Defines many of those things. We are India's one of the oldest digital entrepreneurship focusing on rural India. We started in 2002. It has been a pretty long journey. And what we have observed from this journey has been the transformation of the digital landscape of the country itself. We have observed how that is slowly going into multiple domains. In 2002, I remember working at IIM Ahmedabad that the first space where digital make the largest dent will be communication. And the second would be financials. So if I remember my discussion with my co-founder, who was an American, was that these are the two ones which will pick up digital technologies first. And that has been true. We have all witnessed it. It is right now in our mobile phones and we use it daily. Now the next level is where we are all talking what works. What is that set of enablement that the digital can provide? And my case and my request is to look at agriculture. And the reason why to look at agriculture is very simply because we all need food. Food is not just, in our recent time, if we'll see geopolitics, then food is not just become a matter of food security, but it's become a national security issue. If you look what is happening around the world. We can't compromise on that. And we are compromising in a way because we are not investing enough in that. And that is where the challenge lies, because agriculture needs to be invested much more than what is meager investment that is coming through. Private sector is stepping up. I just read yesterday there were two big deals. One of the largest deal in agri-tech space happened yesterday of around $20 million each, which is largest. But if you look into the tech space, that is nothing. That's a very small investment. But from an agri-tech point of view, it's a large investment. The case that I want to bring through our experience of last 20 years on the ground is that if we are working with farmers. Let me just quickly introduce myself. Our work on it is that we work with about farmers across 12 states. Over 100,000 farmers are directly in our value chains, multiple value chains. We work on around 200 commodities. These 200 commodities we work on retail, and around 12 commodities we work on bulk. Bulk is where we are able to build a scale, economies of scale that we can supply to a buyer in bulk. And the retail is what we take under our brand name called Ekgaon across to the customers. Now that journey from building aggregation clusters, ensuring value chain compliances, SOPs, adherence of practices such as organic farming or chemical-free farming is not an easy journey. But if we look into using all the market tools at our disposal, then the cost of making it work doesn't work out. It doesn't. If I go for organic certification for my farmers and try to pass on that cost to the customer, I am not viable in the market at all in the first place. It's pretty straightforward and simple as that it is. Now, if I don't do that, then there's no USP that I'm putting in. So we made a conscious choice to work in clusters where we can get quality produce, which is organic. So we chose purposely what is known as the least developed districts in the country, where proliferation of intensive agriculture has less. We chose those clusters based on this parameter. And the second parameter was small farmers. And the third parameter was the produce that they are producing there, on which we can build a cluster of value chain that we are intending to work on. Those we build, and then we'll build an aggregation clusters, ensure quality compliances in those clusters, enabled to certain extents one of the first digital crop loan product in private sector we introduced through our farmers, and it has been very successful. One of the most unique product. Now, financial innovation in crop value chain is another big problem, which is not happening. Bankers are reluctant and entrepreneurs are not that much in agri-tech space, which are working on solutions for financial solutions for agri-value chains. That remains another problem. And similarly, risk mitigation, insurance and other tools which are also not yet coming out.
Yeah.
Just 2 more minutes.
Yeah.
So what we do is that we bring all these farmers on our digital platform. We are a very highly digital backbone organization. These farmers, we collate around 180 different parameters of farmers and their farming practices on the farm. All of them are digitized. We do Aadhaar seeding of them, and so we know where the farmer is. We enable farm-level traceability to identify the farmland, where the farmland is, and hence pass on that traceability to the end product that the customer pays for. We focus on building clusters where these produce can be packaged, and then ideally we want them to be packaged. We have promoted 45 farmer producer companies that each of those companies will do that. But as of now, that infrastructure is not evolved, it is slowly evolving. And then we take the product to the market. We are on platforms like ONDC and other Amazon and other market platforms. Plus we are directly working on connecting to the market. But one thing which I want to add is that much of what we have built is what we have built directly ourselves. We didn't get any access to unified data systems which could have helped our journey easy. I'm glad that some talk is happening and there's I've contributed in the development of the agri stack in very initial years, 4 years back, is that if those kind of data systems, something what we've been able to do in UPI and NPS, if we can build those backbone that could be used by entrepreneurs like me and many others, then that infrastructure can evolve those innovations which will be much more useful and productive. But that investment can't come from private sector. It has to come from the government. Thank you.
So thanks, Vijay Pratap. I think that's an amazing journey, amazing grit. I believe when you started in early 2000 days, it's not that much easy to dream such kind of a journey, but probably today is a reality. I think now you have a platform to grow with all the matured systems, people, and also the understanding on the ground. Now we will move to the contemporary or the futuristic technology discussion from Rahul Jain, who represents RapidData Technologies. As shared by Chandrasekhar sir, the technology has to create jobs, not to eat away the jobs. But today the fear also that AI is taking out a lot of jobs, because I live in Bangalore, I can hear every day from my neighbors that how it is impacting. And Rahul, if you can throw some light on AI, how it can be very effectively used in our digital commerce and also the financial access, especially on the grassroots level of our country in perspective, so that it can give a better perspective to the audience.
Thanks, Harish. Thanks for the opportunity here. Pretty insightful conversation from the gentleman here. Once talking about the trinity or the Dev that we have, Aadhaar, Jandhan and mobile. Once talking about ONDC, who is very, in a very short time, I think you have close to about 12 lakh registered users in a very short time. I think I'm outdated then. So 12 lakh registered users who are doing everything right from procurement to logistics and supply. Impressive there. And then you have Ekgaon, who's an inclusive, who's an equal and inclusive platform. I'll talk about AI, but let's first clear a myth. AI is not to take jobs away. So Harish, I'll want to correct you there. AI does not take jobs. AI makes lives easier. Implementation of AI is the biggest challenge in the industry today. I think wherever we talk about, or whoever we talk about today, whether it's a CEO of a company or the CTO or CIO, everyone talks about, hey, I want to do AI. Did you even identify the use case and the problem statement that we are trying to solve with AI? Everyone wants AI. Everyone wants artificial intelligence in their business. But without identifying what is the issue that we are trying to solve, what is the problem statement that we have, what is the benefit that we are trying to derive, implementation of AI is only going to cause more problems. And that's happened with businesses that we've consulted. They did AI implementations which went awesomely or aggressively wrong. That only created more problems in business. So implementing it right is the first step. Finding the issue is actually more important. From a farming or a unified data systems perspective, we have the data infrastructure here. You have 3 people who have spoken about it. Implementing AI should be from a risk mitigation perspective, fraud detection perspective, from a data arbitration perspective, and a data analysis perspective. I am very much in line with what our friend here has said. So Vijay spoke about private players being able to do or build that digital infrastructure. Maybe one player cannot. We will have to work in inclusion with the government, and implementing AI for all these is something that can solve your financial problems. You have the data. All you need is the right measures to cut the fraud, to detect risk, so that we can give the loans or disperse loans from those apps itself. Thanks.
Thanks, Rahul. I think given the time, the shortage, we have to stop here. Otherwise, this session could end even at lunch or dinner, because that's the depth of our panel members. But unfortunately, we have to stop here. However, I would encourage the participants to please reach out to our panel members, and if you have any questions, discuss one-to-one. I can take one question if you allow, or I think they are not allowing me, sorry. But you can please catch out our panelists, and you can have one-to-one discussion to understand little more about the topic. And thank you, panelists, for wonderful insights, and I thank you, participants, for your patient listening to us. Thank you so much.